NFL Week 7 officially kicked off Thursday night. What's going on, everybody? This is your Blue Rush preview show. The 3-2 Eagles head up I-95 in a must-win for both teams. I'm Brandon London, and man, do we have a great show for you guys today. We have NBC Philly host Ashlyn Sullivan breaking things down from the Eagles side, of course, for Know Your Enemy. Next-gen stats are back, so let's see what the stats say about the game. But first, let's bring in our longtime Blue Rush co-host and Giants beat writer for the Post, Paul Schwartz. Paul, what's going on, my man? Big one for both teams, two fan bases and teams that hate each other. It's going to be a great one on Sunday at 1 p.m.
Yeah, normally I would say, easy with the hate stuff, Brandon, but I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that today. No, it's real. Look, Giants Eagles is always very big. There's always a lot of implications. Eagles have had their number for many, many years now. But look, the Saquon Barkley stuff, we'll get into it. That adds not just a chapter, that adds a novel to this whole thing. There's a lot involved with that. It's personal. I don't think anyone's going to deny that. Saquon can say it's not. The Giants can say we love him, but it's all business. It's personal. Giants front office, everything. It's the fans, what Saquon thinks his reaction going to be. So it just adds fuel to this. The fire was burning, and now it's been turned up. It's been turned up a lot. Yeah.
Hands down, the biggest storyline I think that I've covered for the Giants since, being on Blue Rush or just being with the Giants, period, the return to Saquon Barkley. But we're going to get into that. We're talking about that one. But first, let's get into your practice and injury report.
Well, obviously, the big bad news is we know Andrew Thomas is done for the season. Liz Frank surgery, left foot, devastating blow. Starting left tackle, best offensive lineman. I would say, maybe they're not maybe. I think he's their most indispensable player, which means not their best player. I think Dexter Lawrence is their best player, but the one player they really could not afford to lose. They've lost him. They have to move on. But with every door that closes, a door opens, right? Malik Neighbors is completely on schedule to come back. He's out of concussion protocol. That is right place, right time. They need him badly, so that's very good. And two concerns I have is that Wednesday and Thursday, Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence, which is basically their defensive line, with Kayvon Thibodeau still out with a wrist fracture. They didn't practice Wednesday and Thursday. We'll get into that. They both say they're going to play. Brian Daboll's not so sure. They need both of them, not one of them. They need both of them because, as we mentioned, by the way, Saquon Barkley's on the other team. You need everybody on the line available.
All hands, hamstrings, neck bones, chin bones on deck for this one. We talk about the return to Saquon Barkley. It's the storyline that just gives us so much to talk about. From him not thinking he's going to get booed to everything throughout Hard Knocks, Paul. So from the media standpoint, what's the biggest thing that stands out to you in terms of 26 coming back to MetLife?
Oh, there's so much. First of all, let's just talk about the football, right? Yeah. Let's say there's no emotions and talk about the football. The Eagles have done great damage on the ground against the Giants and other teams with kind of a committee, with their quarterback Jalen Hurts running, and with a great offensive line, right? And pretty much felt we can throw any running back there and they can get 1,000 yards with this offensive line and this scheme that we run. Okay, now they've gone in a different direction. They paid big money to Saquon Barkley, bigger money than the Giants wanted to pay, and he is as expected, you take him to a team with a better passing game, a much better offensive line, and he's healthy, and what happens? And Giants, Joe Shane knew this was going to happen, that Saquon, he told John Mara, there's a good chance if Saquon goes elsewhere, especially to a team like the Eagles, he will do very well. Well, he's fourth in the league in rushing, 482 yards. He's averaging 5.3 yards a carry. By the way, that 482 yards is in 5 games, because they've already had their bye, not 6 games. He's got 5 total touchdowns. So as a player, he's been terrific for the Eagles. Now, you can nitpick. He's not been a huge factor in the passing game. He had that very pronounced drop against Falcons down the stretch, which helped the Falcons to a comeback victory. But he's been way more good than bad. I'm sure anyone in Philly would say that. So that's from a football point of view. From an emotional point of view, I mean, he was the face of the franchise. It wasn't Daniel Jones, Barkley. How many 26 jerseys were out there? You said, just when you asked me this question, the return of 26. We didn't even have to say his name. 26. Yeah. We used to call Eli Manning 10. He was 26. So it's very emotional. Saquon wanted to be a Giant for life. That's not lip service. It wasn't political. He did. He was hurt that he had to leave. Once he left, then it was fair game. You know what I mean? The Eagles anybody could sign him. The Jets could sign him. The Eagles could sign him. Somebody that was going to, as John Mara said, made him not be able to sleep at night if he went to the Eagles. Well, hopefully John Mara is getting sleep because he went to the Eagles. As Dexter Lawrence said, I love the guy, but it's war. It's war right now, and that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is.
And that's how you look at it, because first to go to the on the field, I mean, he's got his longest rush of the season, 65 yards. He is still explosive, Paul. He's recorded a 12.1% explosive run rate. That's the highest in the season since back in 2019. He's got it. He went if you look at it as a player, Dexter Lawrence can say, yeah, it's war. You look at it, if you remove it and you look at it as a player, Saquon won. Like you said, he went to a better offensive line, kind of a better environment for a running back, and he's winning. And he got paid. At the end of the day, he got paid. Remove all that from it. From a player standpoint, if I'm Dexter Lawrence, I'm Jason Pinnock, I'm these guys I'm Bobby Okereke, I've been around him. It's open season on him. Keep it clean, everything within the whistle, but keep it clean. It is open season because you're like, this dude, we never got to hit him in practice. Never got to hit him. And you know his weaknesses. You know what makes Saquon good. But you've also been in practices with him where you've probably seen him drop a ball. Hey, he doesn't carry it high and tight from time to time. So you know it, and you've been waiting to play against him just to be like, how do I measure up against Saquon? One-on-one in the box, in the A-gap. Can I tackle this dude? Well, you're going to get your chance to do that. From the fan standpoint, Paul, I'm a little divided when it comes to that because doing all the stuff I've done with the Giants fans throughout the years, I understand how passionate this fan base is. But at the same time, I still understand, like you said, what Saquon meant to the franchise. So when it comes to the booing, which is everyone's been talking about throughout the course of the week, pregame, I'm standing ovation. Hey, thank you, 2-6. Hey, 2-6. But as soon as that ball gets kicked off, I boo him all day. Try and get into his head all day. Because that's you need to kind of try and take something away from him, take some explosiveness out of him, put some little hesitation in him or try and get in his head. But I just don't disrespect the guy because of what he's meant to the franchise. I think that can turn off free agents in free agency to be like, all right, if I don't produce here, or if I do something that the fan base doesn't like, then I could be booed. That sort of thing. People can burn my jerseys or whatever it is people do. But I feel like pregame, celebrate them. Thank you, 2-6. But during the game, you're going to get booed. They're going to come after you, especially since you're an Eagle now.
I mean, I think the whole Saquon thing and all that stuff. I mean, look, that's fans. Fans say silly things. Look, the Giants tried for a year and a half to sign a guy, and there is a school of thought that says they offered him a lot of money, and if he really wanted to be a Giant for life, he should have taken it. Okay, you want to feel that way? Fine. I know for a fact he did want to be a Giant for life, and he ultimately got more money from the Eagles. Okay, he did. He got $26 million guaranteed. The Giants were not quite there. You can argue that all you want. Did he go to some, we've always, we've seen guys that they go to a lousy team, right? And you say, man, why'd he go there? Well, he went there for the money. Well, Saquon didn't go to a lousy team. He went to a team that he never could beat when he was playing for the Giants, basically. It was funny that, and I agree with you. I'm sure there'll be some kind of video tribute. You can, if I was a fan, I would say you cheer him for what he did with the Giants as number 26 wearing blue. And then, yes, then I don't know if it's kind of like the basketball thing, right? Where every time he gets the ball, you boo the hell out of him. You boo him. He's an opposing running back for the team you hate. Yeah. You want him to fumble the ball and you want him to get stopped short. I get that. I liked what Daniel Jones said, because he was asked about it. And Daniel, a lot of the players like Dexter Lawrence said, well, for what he's meant to the franchise, what he meant to me, I hope he would get some cheers. And Daniel Jones knows a lot about booing at MetLife Stadium, right? He knows way too much about booing at MetLife Stadium. And Daniel Jones said, he was asked, how do you think Saquon will be greeted, in his first game back? And Daniel kind of laughed and said, if I had to guess, probably not warmly. He knows.
Such a Daniel Jones answer, warmly.
Probably not warmly. The sad thing is, if I wanted to ask Daniel, how do you think you'll be greeted at MetLife Stadium? He could have said, if I had to guess, probably not warmly. That's just the way it is. It's New York. It's not, Kansas City where they cheer. It's New York. Saquon should be applauded before the game, as you said, and then during the game, you want to pound them into the ground if you can.
It's open season. I know from a franchise standpoint, everybody within that franchise is going to be in their feelings and emotions pregame. You think about Sterling Shepard's last game. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't going to cry or anything, but I made sure that I found him on the field post-game, dapped him up and hugged him and said, thank you, bro, for everything. And that's Sterling Shepard. Saquon Barkley, with everything he did with everyone, the relationships he built within the franchise and that facility, I'm talking with community relations, PR, everybody. Everybody's going to be in their feels and their emotions pregame to hug him. So, but again, once that ball kicked off, it's free game legally, stay clean. But absolutely, if he fumbles, hey, sorry, bro, we needed that.
Giants ball, right?
Giants ball.
And you know what? Other thing, Brandon, is Saquon is trying to play it very even this week and saying, it's not personal. I wish them well, and except when they play us, and it's not personal, and I still love those guys. It is personal. Saquon's an honest guy, but it is personal. He's not going to come out and say that. If he can pick one game to run for 200 yards, it would be this one in MetLife Stadium. It is personal. The Giants told him, look, Joe Shane said, we have our data, right? We have our data that says at 27, running backs start going the other way. How old is Saquon Barkley?
27.
27, right? So Joe Shane was saying, we want to give you money, but we're not going to invest long-term because we think that you're here and it's eventually going to start going down, and you have a history of not staying healthy for us, all those things. It is personal. They told Saquon, you're not worth the money you think you are. And he got the money. It is personal for him. And look, the Giants want to win the game desperately. If Saquon runs for 200 and the Giants win, fine. But if they don't want Saquon to run for 200 in this game, there's no question about it. This is. I'm not saying it's personal with Joe Shane, but Joe Shane said on Hard Knocks, right, and he told us afterwards, it was very, very, very grating on him emotionally and psychologically all that time trying to sign Saquon and not being able to, because he knew in his heart what he felt, not in his heart, in his head. It is not the right thing, his thinking, to pay a running back big money. And you can also look, now they have Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, and that's going okay. It is not Saquon Barkley-like production. It is just okay.
And when you break it down like that, Paul, the player in you, when you break it, like I'm just thinking like how Saquon, what he can be thinking. And then you think about the tweets when they signed him, A.J. Brown and those guys were like, oh, welcome to, I don't know how they let him go. They have some sort of celebration, some end zone celebration that they've been working on. To if they're winning towards the fourth quarter, Saquon breaks one at the end like Brown from the Bengals game. Oh, they're going to do some sort of choreographed dance or celebration, and that's what we do not want to see. And two people that we hope are playing so we don't have to see that. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, two guys who, these dudes play a lot of snaps, Paul. They play a lot of snaps, and I have some stats on that. But do you think the wear and tear of that is starting to get to them going into Week 7?
Well, no practice on Wednesday for Brian Burns with a strained groin, which he's been dealing with. No practice Wednesday and Thursday for Dexter Lawrence with a hip issue, which was new to the injury report. That's alarming. Now on Wednesday, both guys, Dexter Lawrence, when we went to ask him, like, are you playing? He's like, yeah, I'm playing. Yeah, it's just I just rested. Well, he didn't just rest. If he just rested on Wednesday, then why was he just resting on Thursday? So there's something there. So obviously Friday is important, and I would not think any of them will be ruled out. Now Brian Burns has been dealing with this. I saw him after the game last week against the Bengals, and he was hurting. He walked out of the locker room hurting. It's a groin strain. He's playing through it, but it's not. It's an injury. He's playing through it, but it's very painful. He said it was really bad at the short week with Dallas. It was really bad because he didn't have recovery time. And Burns said that they have a plan for me to be able to play on Sunday, and I believe that plan is almost no practice. You know what I mean? Remember when Plaxico was here? At some points, it was like you don't practice and you play because he had ankles and knees, and you don't practice and you play. And for players at a certain level, you can do that. Not for young guys, but certain players who kind of understand the deal, they can do that. But they need these guys desperately, and the question is, if they play, how effective can they be and how long can they play? You don't want to exacerbate injuries, but they're going to play. But with Kayvon already out now, Ojulari played great. But this is a good offensive line, not a great offensive line anymore, and they just lost their left tackle. So there will be plays to be made. Burns played really well against the Bengals, even though he was hobbled. Dexter always plays well. They need these guys on the field, no question.
When we talk about the percentage of defensive snaps these two play, Brian Burns, 84.3% of the defensive snaps this season. That's highest among Giants edge rushers. Dexter Lawrence has played 78.8% of the snaps heading into Week 7. That's fourth highest playtime rate among defensive tackles. These two, they mean a lot. So if you give them vet days, me as like a young guy at practice who used to have to fill in for Plaxico Burress, I would take those reps for him and then have to do my practice squad reps as well. I just had to load up on the Gatorade because you realize what Plaxico was able to do when he was as healthy as possible on that Sunday. So these are two dudes that have to be in the lineup. Dexter Lawrence generating 21 pressures on 184 pass rushes this season. That's tied for second most pressures among defensive tackles. And as an interior defensive lineman, he's tied for the league in sacks. He means anything and everything to this defensive line. And you have to get out of Jalen Hurts. You have to stop Saquon Barkley. So those two, if they want to take vet days for the rest of the week, it is what it is. But again, a huge opportunity for the next guy to step up and to make some plays, put some things on tape, not only for the fan base, but for the coaches and when it's time to get paid. But you're going to need that depth on the back end of the season, Paul, if they're going to go on a run. And you're going to want to be able to give Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence a couple plays off here or there. So if you got to step up and make a play, it's time for you to step up and make a play, whoever it is that's going to step in there. So it's great that these dudes are like, yeah, I'm going to play. I'm going to still get out there. I'm going to still get after it. But at the end of the day, that's something to keep an eye on long term because you can't keep having these guys on the field for so long and then expect them to be healthy week in, week out. Football just has too much wear and tear on the body. So let's flip over to the offensive side, Paul, because we talked about stopping 2-6 and what 2-6 means and how 2-6 is getting better. Let's talk about the Giants running back rotation. Giants have a 2-6, but they also have a 2-9 in Tyrone Tracy Jr. Motor Singletary, I guess, listed as questionable right now. Can Tyrone Tracy Jr. take the workload and maybe still Saquon shine?
Well, I do think ultimately they're better together. You know what I mean? I think if they can have a 1-2 punch, when Devin Singletary was hurt, Tracy really wasn't playing much early in the season, a couple of snaps here and there. And then Singletary missed the last 2 games. Tracy plays great in Seattle with 129 yards, not as good in the first half last week against the Bengals, better in the second half. But I still don't think Tyrone Tracy is a guy that you're going to say, okay, give him the ball. That's it. We got to move, Motor Singletary, off to the side here. Their numbers are okay. Singletary is averaging only 3.9 yards a carry. That's not good. Tyrone Tracy at 4.4. That's better. The Giants are, 24th in the league in rushing at 105.8 yards a carry, a game, 105.8 yards per game. The Eagles are 6th, 146, with Saquon. So it's not like the Giants, replace Saquon with these 2 guys and, they're full speed ahead. Their rushing game is not very good right now. It has to be better. And, that brings us to the offensive line and Andrew Thomas and the loss of him. And, I don't know what you think, Brandon, but this doesn't have to be a jailbreak, calamity, turmoil, season is over kind of thing. Last year when Andrew Thomas got hurt in the season opener, he missed the next 7 games and it was a disaster. He went from, it was a disaster. I mean, they ended up giving up 85 sacks last year. And I don't think it has to be. First of all, before I get into my answer, do you think it has to be a disaster that Andrew Thomas is not there right now?
Absolutely not. It's not a disaster. It's an opportunity.
Sound like a coach?
You want me to keep going? Because, if you're Evan Neal, this is what it's here. It's time. It's here for you. They kind of – you remember back in training camp where beat writers, they were grilling Brian Daboll about, what's wrong with Evan Neal? How come he's not practicing yet? You said that he was good. He was fine. Brian Daboll was kind of jumping on some grenades for him to try and buy him time, get him healthy, whether it's his body or it's his mind, get him ready for the grind. If he gets bumped up, moved over to left tackle, whatever it is, Azidu or Illuminor gets slid over to the left and Evan Neal goes to the right tackle, back to the right tackle position, opportunity is right there. You never want your boy to get hurt. You never want someone within your unit to get hurt. But at the end of the day, your opportunity for whatever reason just arose, and now you have a chance to go in and fill in for one of the top players on the team. It's there. It's there for the taking, Paul. And he's got to show up. But Daniel Jones, with the numbers of Daniel Jones with Andrew Thomas on the field and off the field, absolutely mind-boggling. So they're going to have to get that together. But, yes, to answer your question, it does not have to be a disaster.
I think it's going to be Azudu. I don't think they want to make 2 moves. So the move is just put Josh Azudu in at left tackle, and you leave Illuminor at right tackle, and Neal. Clearly, the coaching staff does not think Evan Neal is next man up. He's not, and he's basically only taking snaps at right tackle. So they would have to move him in at right tackle and move Illuminor to left tackle. Jermaine Illuminor said the other day, it's funny. He'll do whatever they ask him to do, but he didn't say, just let me know early in the week and I'll move over to left tackle. I've done it before, which he has done it before. Illuminor said, well, my preference is to stay at right tackle. People don't understand how difficult it is to move from the right side to the left side. So he wants to stay at right tackle. And Azudu has taken, almost all his reps in training camp and in OTAs and this season at left tackle. He was drafted 2 years ago as a guard, but they're putting him at tackle. He's been a tackle, and he was not ready to play last year when he had to play. He just wasn't. He was a second-year player. They seem to think he's more ready this year. And you know what, Brandon? And I'm going to write about this Sunday in the Post because Brian Daboll was talking about it. Player development, right? It's not just a phrase. Player development. You have to develop players. You can't always draft a Andrew Thomas and a Malik Neighbors and a Dexter Lawrence, right? You have to develop players. It's not just we draft great players and we just kind of move them through and they're great players. Josh Azudu was a 3rd-round draft pick, a 3rd-round pick. There are 3rd-round picks around the league starting, right? Everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere. At quarterback, less so. At running back, a lot. At offensive line, a lot. On defensive line, at cornerback, all over the place.
Yep.
This was not an undrafted free agent or a seventh-round pick. He's a third-round pick. I asked John Runyon about him, and he said, we'll have a plan. We'll do some chipping. I would expect Chris Manhertz is going to be, the tight end is going to be playing a lot over that side. And Runyon said, I don't feel it's going to be too crazy of a transition. So this is why you draft guys and you develop them. If a third-round pick cannot go in there and play serviceable, not play Andrew Thomas, but play a decent brand of football against, let's face it, the Eagles have 11 sacks as a team, okay? 11 sacks. Yeah. This is not the defensive front we've seen previously. Then they need to develop this guy and play at a certain level. They think he can. Azudu is said he's confident. He practices for this. So we'll see. He's not Andrew Thomas, but, that's also a reason why you have a guy like John Runyon, who's a veteran. You have veterans in that room and on that line who can help him. So they need to help him, and Azudu needs to step up and play decently.
We talk about Saquon coming back. This is a big game for Joe Schoen as well, because remember, he talked about shoring up the offensive line. So Saquon coming back, you missed out, well, not missed out on the running back. The running back left, but now you have that offensive line in place for one, depth. Now you got Azudu bumping up, but Joe Schoen drafted Josh Azudu, right?
Yeah.
So now he gets to. This is an opportunity for Azudu, for Joe Schoen, player development, for everybody within that building, and especially on that offensive line, to show like, okay, 2-6 left, and he's doing his thing down in Philly. But the reason why I allowed him to leave and didn't give him money is to shore up the offensive line for times in games like this.
If a third-round pick can't play, it's a problem.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's
absolutely.
To it. You know what I mean? It's not just some guy you're throwing out there. If a third-round pick can't play, it's a bad pick. It's a Joe Schoen pick. Let's see if it's a bad pick or a decent pick.
Yep, you circle it as a bad evaluation right there. Paul, we're going to get into this even more. It's this time we got to throw to Know Your Enemy right now, because we got to find out what's going on with the Eagles. And let's get the vibes around Philly with Ashlyn Sullivan. She covers the Eagles and all Philly sports for NBC Philly. Ashlyn, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. We got a big one on Sunday. How you feeling down there in the city of brotherly love?
Feeling great. It's been a long time since we chatted. Last we chatted, it was playoffs last year, and that did not go the Eagles' way, as we know. So, yes, we're excited for a big matchup. It feels like fall in the air. I know it's going to be a little warmer on Sunday for this Giants game, but we're excited for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be 75 and sunny at MetLife Stadium. I'm going to leave the turtleneck at home. Paul, Ashlyn, Paul, kick this thing off for us.
I can't promise I'm not going to wear a flannel shirt, but we'll see. We'll see. That could be a game time decision on Sunday. Ashlyn, thanks for coming on. Look, I've covered, and Brandon and I know Saquon so well. His whole career was with the Giants. He wanted to be a Giant for life. He's clearly wearing Eagles green, so he's now not a Giant for life. What are the vibes down there in Philly with Saquon and how much this means to him? I know he has said it's not personal, it's a game. I think Saquon's a very honest guy, but I don't think he's telling the truth there. What do you think the truth is with Saquon right now?
I do think this game means a lot to him. We talk to him every single day in the locker room about this. We all want him to say that, he's super passionate about this and he's been thinking about this since he came over from New York. I don't know if it's that case for Saquon. I mean, he has been excellent to deal with here in Philadelphia. We really have enjoyed getting to know him, his professionalism, how humble he is, how just normal guy he is in this locker room. He's a very stable force, I think, with a lot of personalities. With this Eagles team, he did say as the week has gone on, he's feeling more and more emotional about the game. And I thought, truthfully, A.J. Brown was great about Saquon Barkley in this return to MetLife, saying something very similar to what happened with him when he got traded from the Titans, is everyone wants you to talk about it in the lead up. And then the game happens and A.J. Brown says the beast comes out. The beast is released. And A.J. Brown expects the same thing to happen to Saquon. We all know him. We know his personality. He's not going to go out and be the rah-rah guy and talk about this all week, but I do expect Saquon Barkley to have big-time motivation to perform. He was saying he doesn't think he's going to get booed. We're going to see if that actually happens or not.
You mentioned A.J. Brown, and I'm glad you did, because Saquon's not going to give us any clickbait going into this matchup. He's going to be super coy. But A.J. Brown, Paul, do you remember the Hard Knocks episode, the infamous Hard Knocks episode? A.J. Brown had tweeted, the Saquon video got me fired up, and it wasn't even about me. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you get yours, fam. Do you feel as though there's a sense around the locker room where not only A.J. Brown, but the entire team is going to rally around Saquon Barkley to make sure he has 26, has himself a big day on Sunday?
Oh, I could definitely see that. He is so well liked already. And guys talk about his professionalism in the locker room and how easy he is to root for. I think a big guy to look at here this week is Jalen Hurts. Truthfully, I was so impressed with Saquon Barkley in training camp, how Kellen Moore was using him in the passing game. And we know that drop against the Atlanta Falcons in week 2 was brutal for Saquon Barkley. He really owned up to it, that he felt like he cost the Eagles the game. But I'd like to see a little more of Saquon Barkley in the passing game. So I think that's something to keep an eye on this week. Is Jalen Hurts going to get him his targets? We know he's going to get his carry, Saquon, but that's a wrinkle of Saquon's skill set that I don't think we've seen enough of so far this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kellen Moore is crafting that up as we speak to get Saquon the ball more in the passing game this week.
14 catches on 17 targets. You mentioned that one drop. That's only two balls thrown to him that's been incomplete balls. So, Paul, he's kind of had some sure hands this season. We've seen him drop balls here when he was in New York. So that pass game is really being involved in the pass game is really showing how multi-talented he is in terms of what he brings to an offense. Head coaching wise, because, we have Brian Daboll. He doesn't give the press much. Nick Sirianni is a walking retweet. Your thoughts on where Sirianni is in terms of the fan base, that relationship?
The fan base, the relationship isn't good. I think the relationship in the building is much better than perceived. I think it's a much bigger deal outside the building than what it actually is going on. But hey, that's Philadelphia. And I know similar things go on in New York. It's a major media market. And Nick Sirianni, I think, as a whole, could really contribute and help out if everything just simmered down a little bit. What I think is unfortunate is I think the Eagles sadly have put Coach Sirianni in this box where you're hearing players and you're hearing Coach Sirianni admit that he wants to go back to being 2022 Nick, where the Eagles had a ton of success. They were winning football games. He was allowed to be his passionate, emotional self on the sideline, and the team feed off of it and get wins because of it. But now when Sirianni is stripped of his play calling duties and is more turned to this CEO type of head coach, it really seems like the Eagles have put him in this box that really doesn't fit his characteristics. And we were talking to A.J. Brown again post-game locker room last week, and players were saying, we went up to Coach Sirianni and we told him, hey, go back to being the Nick we know. So truthfully, this has been very confusing, this new role for Sirianni. It just doesn't seem to fit his personality, and fans are certainly getting fed up here in Philadelphia, because every single week, while we should be talking about the football game or the matchups or Jalen Hurts, instead, for a good 4 straight days post-game, if you turn on sports talk radio here, it's all about Coach Sirianni. And I think that's frustrating to fans when you have a team here that should be performing better than what it is right now.
Paul?
Yeah, look, it's bizarre that there was so much negativity coming out of a game that they won last week. I understand the Browns aren't very good. I understand it wasn't an impressive victory, but it's football. There's only 17 games, It's better to have an unimpressive victory than to look great and lose at the buzzer. You just need to win these games. We all saw those clips of him going to the fans, and that was ridiculous. That was immature. You can't do that at home, certainly. And I want to ask you, because I've been in, a million of these post-game press conferences, and I don't think personally that as a family man, I don't think it's appropriate to have your little kids up there post-game press conference. That is a working relationship. Look, we all know that if you have a child care issue and you have to bring the kid to work, okay, that's fine. I don't think Nick Sirianni had a child care issue after the game. I don't think it's appropriate. I think he looked like he was using them as shields to avoid any hard questions about the antics he just pulled. So I want to know what your take on that is. Like I said, I'm not anti-kids. I don't think football is bigger than family, but I think for the 10 or 15 minutes after a game, you should be up there talking to the media and not have your kids jumping around and running around and grabbing the microphones. Is that too harsh? What's your stance on that with Nick?
No, I don't think it's too harsh at all. And truthfully, I think it's really dependent on the situation, because that's probably the fourth or fifth time that Sirianni has brought his family up to the podium. I mean, last year there were a number of times, and at that moment, it felt right. They were coming off big wins. They were performing the way they were supposed to be, especially early on last season. And when he would bring his kids up, it was cool. You know, it was showcasing the family atmosphere that the Eagles definitely have inside the building. But I think the issue with Coach Sirianni right now is a lot of times we say, read the room, read the situation. And we knew that the Eagles did not meet expectations of how they should have beaten the Browns, how we talked about it all week. So at that point, and especially when you're ending the game, at that point, I'm sure Coach Sirianni knows that he was caught on camera, you know, taunting with the fans. It just seems like a little bit of a shield. Yes. And it seems like he wasn't reading the room, reading the situation. I think as a whole, I know media would like to see Coach Sirianni take this a little more seriously. For example, you know, he's chomping on gum, he's throwing gum across the stage at one press conference. It's just as a whole, it's, as a head coach, this is part of your job. And a lot of times I feel like it's not being taken enough seriously for the situation. So yes, I don't think it resonated very well in the room. And it just made the whole situation a little more confusing. And truthfully, this head coaching gig, what is Sirianni's role, has been confusing from the start.
Yeah, he needs to tread lightly, because you are the face of a franchise, and I'm the son of a head coach, maybe not NFL head coach, but, you know, my father at William and Mary, there's ways you got to conduct yourself, and you can't be up there acting like a frat boy. And I'm not just saying that because my dad never takes me to the podium, Mike London. But at the same time, I'm with you, Paul. Like, there's a professionalism there because you're still working. Ashlyn, I want to talk to you about the defense, because Vic Fangio was supposed to come up in here and turn this defense around. Defensively, the Eagles have missed 15.5% of their tackle opportunities this season. That's the second highest rate in the league. Opposing running backs have gained 10-plus yards on 15.3% of their carries against the Eagles' defense. That's the second highest explosive run rate allowed in the NFL this season. What is going on with that defense?
I have been very surprised that it's performed in this way. I mean, Vic Fangio, we were very impressed with him in training camp. And truthfully, from everything we were told and the way Vic Fangio communicated, it was pretty clear he was given the keys to this defense. He was given the personnel, and he said, do the best with this. When I look at the biggest issues with defense, I think Vic Fangio, I really appreciate how honest he is, because he has been saying, with this pass rush, I just feel as though the personnel, it's not good enough to have an adequate pass rush, which is then a ripple effect for everything we're seeing on defense. We're seeing guys not in the correct position. We're seeing in the secondary them not being able to get where they want to be, because this pass rush, frankly, for most of the season has been non-existent. And I think what's really telling of that is Brandon Graham is supposed to be on his farewell tour. He is supposed to be victory lap, you know, coming in here and there, making a key play when needed. But Brandon Graham's snap count is the highest with defensive ends as of right now for the Eagles. That was never the plan. And to me, that shows that Vic Fangio believes he doesn't have the personnel necessary to get home for the pass rush. And that's the biggest issue we're seeing. In my mind, they should have kept Hassan Reddick. I understand he wanted the big contract. He wanted to get paid, but that was your best pass rusher. And now when he's gone, we're not seeing the production from anyone else to make up for that. And I don't know how that gets fixed, sadly. I don't know if you can just bring someone in and plug and play, but I predict these same issues will stay because we haven't seen it be what it needs to be in the pass rush.
Paul?
Yeah, I would not have predicted the Giants would be leading the league in sacks with 26 and the Eagles would have 11. You know, I mean, the Eagles seem to have 11 sacks in a game against the Giants, you know, the last 5 or 6 years here. You know, I know the Eagles have some injury issues. So are we expecting, I guess, Jordan Mailata is not going to play. I guess Dallas Goedert is not going to play. What about Darius Slay? And, you know, they're using 2 rookies starting cornerbacks, right? The slot corner, Dejan, and Mitchell is, you know, a starting corner. And now the Giants have Malik Neighbors coming back. So, you know, how do you sense that's going to go? And, you know, are these injuries a big deal for the Eagles?
It really is. I think Jordan Mailata is definitely the biggest one, especially this week going up against this Giants defensive line. It is not the week to be without your starting left tackle. So that's going to be a big blow for the Eagles. They've been honest about that Fred Johnson's going to come in. We've seen some bits and pieces of him, but this is a big hole that the Eagles need to fill rather quickly. I think with Slay, that's the most interesting one because we did not see him practice on Thursday. From everything we talked to him about, it's not that serious. I think he could play, but you're seeing such impact from Quinyon Mitchell, that rookie starting corner, to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if he shadows Neighbors and is given that opportunity. I mean, those two draft picks, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, seem like slam dunk picks, that they're already getting the production that they want on this Eagles defense right away from these rookies. It puts the Eagles in a great position that, in my opinion, they don't feel like they have to rush Slay back because they have the impact on the other side from Quinyon Mitchell. So I do think Slay is going to play, but if I'm a Giants fan, I'm definitely keeping an eye on this Eagles secondary because Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean have gotten noticeably better week after week, and they had a great game against the Browns last Sunday.
Malik Neighbors back. Eagles secondary kind of banged up. How are you guys, or how is the fan base and what are the players saying in the locker room about going up against Daniel Jones?
I feel as though the Eagles think it's a great opportunity. I mean, I know Daniel Jones has definitely struggled. We saw this pass rush that I just crucified get a teeny bit better last week against the Browns. And they just talk about one step at a time, getting momentum, getting those sacks, getting those pressures. We saw it at least come alive, this Eagles pass rush last week. So talking to, for example, Josh Sweat in the locker room, he was just saying, we have some momentum finally to build off, that we know this pass rush is alive here. So they see that as an opportunity. But I know Eagles fans, and I know this city, and in their opinion, if you can't get home against this Giants offensive line and Daniel Jones, it's going to be a disaster here in Philadelphia because they see it as a problem, and you can cement it as being a problem for the rest of the season if the Eagles can't do what they need to do and get home against Daniel Jones this week.
Paul.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the defense. Adding Saquon to this offense. I know Kelsey's not there anymore. I know A.J. Brown has missed some time, but it seemed like adding Saquon to this offense was like the last missing piece. And what are the Eagles averaging? 21 points a game? Like I said, I know there's been some injuries. I know, Jalen Hurts has 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So something's not jiving there, right? Obviously, the Eagles, you can read it, and I see it every week, is that why aren't they scoring enough points? Why is it so difficult? Why is it so difficult? And, are there questions that Jalen is not the slam dunk franchise quarterback that we gave $50 million to a quarterback?
Oh, there's massive questions about that. Everyone in Philadelphia talks about why isn't Jalen Hurts the 2022 Jalen Hurts that we saw, that in everyone's opinion earned him that contract. In my opinion, the contracts, you guys know in New York with Daniel Jones, if you're going to have a quarterback, you're going to have to pay him franchise-changing money. That's just the way the NFL is right now. So I think Eagles fans get very frustrated when you put the dollar amount towards Jalen Hurts. In my opinion, that's a losing argument. But Jalen Hurts certainly has regressed this season. Finally, we saw last week against the Browns where he didn't turn the ball over and cost the Eagles the situation. So that was good to see that he handled that last week. But now you need to see that consistently because Jalen Hurts was making some very poor decisions at the start of the season that really put his defense in a bad place. I think the biggest issue on offense that we talked a ton about is the Eagles are the only team in the NFL that hasn't scored a first quarter point. And when you look at this roster on paper, you say, how in the world can they not start fast? They frankly just look unorganized to start the game. Another thing is Jalen Hurts having trouble throwing to the middle of the field. You see that he's very reliant on A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the outside. When it works, it looks great. It's the home run ball. But with these injuries with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, luckily they're finally back on the field and hopefully can stay on the field. But as a whole, Jalen Hurts, it was really surprising to me because in training camp, he looked so decisive. Every single training camp practice, we left the field saying, I definitely am going to see the 2022 Jalen. It is not transferred at all to game action. And that's the most confusing part is how could Jalen look so good in camp? And then we see this so far this season.
Last question, Ashley, really quick before we let you go. With everything that we've mentioned between the antics from the head coach, defense not being what everyone thought they were going to be, and then the question mark around the QB1 in Jalen Hurts, if the Eagles come up I-95 and lose to the Giants, who have been little brother to them over the past couple of years, do you see a Robert Saleh situation happening, or do you think the fan base could completely turn against this team?
I don't see a Robert Saleh situation happening. I do think Coach Sirianni is going to remain the coach for this Eagles team throughout the season. If it goes poorly, I very much could see them making a decision in the offseason, but I think they're going to stick with Sirianni. I do, frankly, very much believe if the Eagles lose this game in New York, this fan base will turn on them. I mean, as a whole, they're very close. They're very frustrated. I think it's a little bit unfair. I think as a whole, the expectations for this team were way too high going into this season. And that was everyone. That was media included. I mean, I had them at 12 to 13 wins, and now I have them 8, 9, 10 wins if that's a good season. They just aren't performing to our expectations. I don't think they're given enough credit that they have 2 new coordinators. They've dealt with major injuries to start the season. As a whole, though, this fan base is already very close to turning on them. I think they're a little damaged from the Phillies as well. It just hasn't been a good couple of months here in Philadelphia in the sports world. So, yeah, you throw around must win too much, but this certainly feels like it for the Eagles.
Well, if it makes you feel better, the Yankees and the Mets are in the, the NLCS and the ALCS, so you guys can have that. Are you coming up Sunday, or are you in studio for the post-game show?
I am holding it down in studio, but I'll be waving you guys. I wish I was there, especially for 75-degree weather.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on. We enjoyed this. Probably held you a lot longer than what we wanted, so I hope you're not late to practice or anything, but thanks for that insight.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. Hey, thanks again, Ashlyn, for that. Paul, we've done a lot of these Know Your Enemies, and we've come out of a lot of them like, Giants match up well against this team. They can win that game. I think this one right here, after talking to her and listening to how they're on the brink of the ship kind of imploding, this is the opportunity for the Giants to really take this game and beat this team.
You have to remember, though, beat writers, when I go on with other things, the beat writers, and I say they can't do this, they can't do that, the Giants can't do this, this is a problem, this guy's hurt. So Ashlyn said the same thing. This is no good, this is no good, this guy's hurt, this fans of this. That's our nature. That's our nature, is to pick apart our team and say, I don't think they can win another game. You know what I mean? The Eagles will be representative, and they'll be representative on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. They have no fear about walking into MetLife Stadium. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Yep. So I bit on the clickbait just now. She got me on that one to click on that. But hey, at the same time, again, it's there for the taking. So now we got some next-gen stats for you guys, not presented, but powered by AWS. So you guys can break down this matchup down to the details. Paul, I've got 4 good ones for you. I'll ramble them off. You fire, you answer the question. Tell me what you think. First one, Saquon Barkley has totaled 277 rushing yards on 38 carries against 6 or fewer defenders in the box this season, second most amongst running backs. If you're Shane Bowen, do you load the box up, Paul?
As long as Dexter Lawrence is healthy and in good shape, I don't know if you need to load the box. Look, what we've seen from Shane Bowen is he does not want to get beat over the top, okay? And so if Saquon is grinding, that's going to be a problem. But he doesn't want A.J. Brown over the top. He doesn't want Devonta Smith over the top. So I think you got to be careful loading the box and now the Giants are pretty healthy in the defensive backfield, but I would be careful about that. You know what I mean? I think you have to, and also Saquon on a wheel route. I mean, you just got to be careful. I don't know if you want to just load the box and have your defensive backs in one-on-one coverage with, 2 really good receivers.
Yeah, and the Eagles do so much when it comes to the RPOs, and you talk about the weapons they have healthy on the outside with what we call bad boys, because they do the whole Martin Lawrence, Will Smith thing, but Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, if you load that box, you're one-on-one on the outside, and I don't think anybody wants those problems. Next up, Jalen Hurts has recorded the 3rd longest time to throw this season, and that's including 29 attempts of 4 seconds or longer. Pass rush, in terms of the Giants, Paul, Is this a game or a statement game for the Giants pass rushers?
Well, there's been a lot of statement games, I mean, look, they lost Kayvon last week, and Azeez Ojulari stepped in and was terrific. So, I don't know if they need to have a statement game. They just need to play their game, which has been really, really solid. Now they need Brian Burns to be healthy. That groin strain is not going away. He's managing it, but he played really well with that last week. Hopefully it's not worse this week. But yeah, I mean, I think there will be opportunities there. The offensive line, they do not have their starting left tackle, the Eagles. They don't have him. Fred Johnson, the backup, is not a great player. So the Giants are going to be without their left tackle. The Eagles are going to be without their left tackle. It's not good for either offensive line. But the Giants' defensive line has been playing at a very high level. And yes, Jalen Hurts can be susceptible to pressure. There's no question about it.
Brian Burns has been lights out. Azeez Ojulari has been lights out as well. So here's one for you. He's generated 13 pressures on 92 pass rushes. That's good for the highest pressure rate by a Giants pass rusher this season, with a minimum of 50 pass rushes, of course. Does Azeez Ojulari have, and has he proven that he has enough juice to take this game over?
Take the game over? It's Azeez Ojulari. He has an opportunity to play really well, and that's the thing, Brandon, right? Is like, after you play a really big game, can you do another one? Azeez is a backup. He's been a backup. He's been a starter. He's been a backup this year since Burns got here. He had that really good game and put that really good game on tape. Now can he back that up with a second one? Not anyone, but players do it once. Can they do it a second time after everyone else has noticed? I don't think take the game over, but look, the Giants' defensive line at times has taken segments of games over this season, and if they can do that this week, it'll be a good spot for the Giants.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Azeez, maybe he gets the 1.5, 2 sacks that he's been getting when he gets his opportunity, but I think it's going to be even bigger to get hands up, get that ball down, especially on those RPOs. That's going to help the back end in terms of the secondary, and also those linebackers that got to cover in space. They run a lot of slants off those RPOs, Paul, and there's a lot of space for those Eagles receivers to get yacked. So if he can't get there with the sack, get your hands up, get some batted balls, because those are big plays as well. Last but not least, we talked about the Giants running back rotation. The Giants averaged 5.2 yards per carry on 38 inside rushes with Tyrone Tracy on the field, compared to 3.5 yards per carry on 55 inside rushes with Tracy off the field. Could this be the game that the rookie officially takes over and becomes the Giants' RB1?
I don't think officially. We'll see what the numbers say. I don't think if Devin Singletary is healthy that he will not start and Tracy will start. Look, don't forget this coaching staff. Brian Daboll loves Motor Singletary. Joe Shane loves him. That's why they signed him. He was with them in Buffalo, so they love him and believe in him. But look, Tracy absolutely earned playing time. This is not a situation where Singletary comes back, he gets his 18 carries, and Tracy gets 4. That's not going to be the case. It'll be more balanced. It could be series to series. It could be first down, second down, third down. We'll see. Tracy has earned carries. And if you told me at some point this season, is there a changing of the guard and Tracy is starting, I could certainly see that. But, they gave Devin Singletary pretty good money, and they believe in him. He had some okay games, some decent games, and some not great games. Some of that is scheme. Some of that is the offensive line, obviously. Now it's a kind of a new iteration of the offensive line without Andrew Thomas. But Tracy will play. It doesn't even matter who starts, right? It matters that at the end of the game, you look at the carries, and where are they? I think it'll be pretty even, or if not, maybe a slight edge to Tracy.
And I think he deserves the bulk load of it. So, yeah, so he should get that, because we were talking about running inside the tackles. Paul, look at the free agents. We talk about who the Giants paid this offseason to try and protect the quarterback. Van Roten comes in. John Runyon Jr. comes in. That's your left and right guard. And then JMS, your second-round draft pick from a year or two ago. That's the inside. That right there is this rookie running back feels comfortable running behind the money. So you kind of got to, if you're Joe Shane, you're like, hey, I told you I had to bring these guys in, and I got a rookie running back running behind them. So that's something to keep an eye on this game. All right, Paul, we spent a lot of time on today's episode, man. A lot of football, a lot of storylines. Finish this off, man. Give us your final thought.
Look, it's a little long. We could have done a whole episode, a whole segment just on Saquon. You know, we can't. Look, here's what I would say. I think the Giants have a chance to win this game. And it's not, of course, they have a chance, but I think the Eagles are not playing great. The Giants are not playing great, and they're just coming off a game where they scored 7 points. Daniel Jones has to get his head together and start throwing touchdown passes at Giant Stadium. He's gone at Giant Stadium, at MetLife Stadium. Look at me aging myself here. That's when I get excited. That's what happens, right? I have a flashback. Daniel Jones has not thrown a touchdown pass at home in 5 games. That's ridiculous. Look, they need to move on. John Runyon said something very poignant to me this game the other day. He's sitting in his locker, and to his left, a locker right next to him is Andrew Thomas, right? Who's not there. He's recovering from foot surgery. And John Runyon said Andrew Thomas, great player, great teammate, great person. Okay, and then he said, his locker is right here. I hate to say it, but we're moving on from him at this point. He's not going to be able to help us on the field anymore this season. And that's it. We're moving on from him. I mean, we're not moving on from him as a person and how we feel about him. He's thinking, but football-wise, he's done. And there's no sense belaboring the point. And that's the Giants' attitude they have to take into this game. We never beat the Eagles. Okay, that's in the past. That's done. Andrew Thomas is hurt. Okay, he's in the past right now. He's done. At some point, the Giants have to stop with this. We can't score at home, and we can't beat the Eagles. That's all there is to it. And, put your feet on the ground and make a statement. And they didn't do it last week. This is a rival. They need to do it this week and, not let Saquon Barkley, as you said, think of all this creative way to dance on their heads in their own stadium. At some point, you can't do what everyone expects you to do and lose.
Yep. It's right there for the taking. Everyone's got an opportunity. It's going to be sunny, no rain, no crazy wind, none of that. It's going to be a packed house. Your fan base hates that other fan base and vice versa, so there's going to be a war within chance. It's right there, Paul, and this is the game for them to take it. We got to thank you guys for watching the Blue Rush Preview Show. Make sure you check out the New York Post Sports social pages on how and when to watch our post-game live stream. On Monday, we're going to have Paul back to break down the game from his point of view as well. Remember, he's up in the box. He sees it all, and then he's in the post-game locker room after he hears it all. So we want to thank our entire Blue Rush team, and we'll see you guys on Sunday.